I'm Kimberly from Fat Quarter Shop, and today we're adding a splash of zen to your quilting with our free pattern. So today we're featuring the Beachy Bargello quilt, and today we're going to take some time to talk about color values, color placement, and picking your fabrics. And you guys have asked for a Bargello quilt for a long time. And so this is our second quilt. It's not a full crazy Bargello, but it's one that we can actually start and accomplish in one day. Today we're featuring the Serena Shores collection by Pickens and Moda fabrics. Now for our light blue, that's going to be your sky background. You need 1 2/3 yard. For your C, you need 1 7/8 yards, and we used a darker background. Both of these are from Thatched Collection by Pickens. For your white-capped ocean wave in the middle, you need 6 prints. We're going to talk about these color ranges in a little bit, but you need 1/3 yard of each. And then for your binding and your backing, I chose a dark blue because that really ties all the colors together, and I picked a low volume for your backing. So before we start sewing, let's talk about fabric placement and how we really chose these fabrics. So for success with your Beachy Bargello quilt, it's going to be all about picking your fabrics. And we've picked a sky and a sea. They're the same SKU, so that's going to provide consistency. We just did 2 different colors. For your waves, you need 6 fabrics. The most important is this fabric right here, for it to be a tone-on-tone with no print to it. Then you want to move to something that's low volume with a little bit of a print, a little bit busier, a different color, and then 2 dark ones. And you can see this is how this forms. And it's really important when you pick your fabrics, just lay them out like this. If it doesn't look good, it's not going to look good in your quilt. Each of these, when you sew them together, are going to finish at 3 inches. So you could just space them out where they're 3 inches, and you can see before you sew it together how your scale is going to look. But like I said, this and this, super easy to pick. This has to be light, and then these 5 are going to be your hardest for you to pick. I think this collection really works well for the Bargello just because the look of the prints really goes with the design. So now that we've talked about color placement, let's move on to sewing some strips and subcutting. For each of your fabrics that make up the waves, you're going to cut 2 strips that are 3.5 by width of fabric, and then we're going to sew those together. So I do have some tips for you when you're doing that. Some people will lay out their fabrics and they'll rotate every other strip so the salvages go different ways. I personally don't do that because I just think it doesn't matter. But one thing I will tell you is I would not go to your sewing machine and just sew this together. I would put a numerous amount of pins across before you sew. That's going to give you a better result than just flipping your fabrics. And also what I would say is just take your time because the placement of this is so important. And so if you accidentally sew this in the wrong direction, the quilt is not going to look as good as it does when you start this way. So pin, sew them together, and you're going to make 2 strip sets that look like this. So this is how it looks when it's sewn together. If you want, you can press according to the pattern, and that will make everything nest. If you're like me, I would just press the whole thing open so I wouldn't have to think about it. And you're going to have 2 of these. But the most important thing now is going to be to cut these the right size and to label them. So to start, I would like a clean edge right here. So what I'm going to do is turn this around to get a clean edge and then turn it back around. The top and bottom of this does matter, so it's really important that you kind of follow the pictures and make sure you have your lightest and your darkest at the same spot. So I have a clean edge. I'm going to go back. We're going to cut 3 2.5 strip sets. So I'm going to do 5 inches. I generally will do a bigger size and then a smaller. That's just how I learned. So I'm going to do 5 2.5, 1 more 2.5. And all of this is in the pattern. So here are your number 1 strips. For number 2, you're going to make 4 that are 3 inches. So from here, I'm going to cut 6 inches, subcut down to 3. Same thing here, 6 inches. If I was in my sewing room doing this, I would totally be talking to myself because I'm less likely to make a mistake if I talk out what I'm about to do. Even if my family thinks I'm crazy, that's totally fine. And piecing, we use color 2000 of Aurifil thread. These we're going to label number 2. For our number 3, we're going to do 4 3.5 inch strip sets. And what I'm going to do here is sometimes it gets wavy in the middle, but I'm looking. It's not looking wavy at all, so I'm not going to have to do a recut or a reposition on the left. Sometimes I'll reposition and cut a straight edge on the left, but I don't feel like I need to do that yet. Now, before we started, we cut off our selvages. Most of you will have salvages over here. This we're not going to be using. So this is going to be number 3. So again, we've got the light at the top and we need to put a straight edge here before we start. So I'm going to flip this over, line up one of the lines on my Creative Grids ruler with a seam and cut this. For our set 4, we need 4 4.5 inch strip sets. And these technically, you might not call them strip sets. I'm just calling them that. So 4.5. And these are going to be your number 4s. And then for your number 5, you need 2 5.5 inch strip sets. So 5.5. And then this we're not going to use. Now, of course, with these 2 leftover pieces that you have, you could do something fun for your backing if you didn't want to get rid of those. So these are your number 5s. So now what I want to show you before we keep going is just how they look. You've got a difference of sizes. You know, it's kind of like the Bargello. It has the different sizes and the different waves, and I've just used Wonder Clips to clip these on. So here are all your strip sets, and when you look at page 4, all of your 1s are here. Then you start moving in. You go to your 2s, 3s, 4s, 5s. So every time you make a strip set with 1, you're going to have a fabric E strip at the top and a fabric J strip at the bottom. So what you can do is sew all of these at one time. All of your 2s are going to have a D strip at the top and an I strip at the bottom. You can do all of those at one time. All of your 3s have C at the top and H at the bottom. All of your 4s have a B at the top, a G at the bottom, and your 5s have an A at the top and an F at the bottom. So the way that I would do this quilt is I would sew all of these and stop and then keep your number 1 on there. Do the same thing, just keeping this number on there. And then what you can do is line them up and sew them together, and you could kind of just go very slow, very steady. I would say you definitely need to pin when you're adding this. But when you add your rows together, you definitely have to pin all the way across. If you don't, you're going to have a wavy quilt. So pinning when you sew these together is going to really help. Another thing that might help is using a design wall so that you could lay out all of your waves and make sure they're going in the right position before you sew them together. So when you look at the quilt, this is row 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 4, 3, 2, 1. 2, 3, 4, 5. 4, 3, 2, 1. So hopefully that makes more sense for you. And you can see the different size of these strip sets is what creates the waves. Now we used a cream thread when we were quilting this because if we would have used a blue or gray thread, it really would have interrupted the prettiness of the cream. And you can see that you can't even see that cream thread on your darker fabrics. So color placement on your pantograph is even going to matter. And we did nice waves to go along with the theme of the Beachy Bargello. And again, I have a wonderful low volume on the back of the quilt. Thanks for watching. I hope you love the Beachy Bargello quilt. It's so fun and it's actually very doable. We really started with an easy Bargello and I hope you tackle it. Subscribe to our channel and I'll see you next time.